to Surface Properties.
That's right.
So we'll close out the generic browser for now. I'll press the F5 key to open up Surface Properties. And we have the pan group here inside the texture browser. I'm sorry, here inside of our Surface Properties window as I get all confused again. If we click in the U direction on any of these buttons, we are moving the texture along in U, which is in general it's going to be horizontally, and you're moving it by the number of units shown on the button. So if I click the 1 button, we're moving it 1 unit. If I click 16, we're moving it 16, and so on. You can also hold Shift as designated here, and we can move in the opposite direction. So I can slide it back. Now, using this method, I can put that line right back down the center of our mesh. I think one more and it'll be right there.
But here's what I don't like about it. Let's look at the corner now.
Yeah.
This is a common mistake of beginners who love putting together maps and putting them out on the internet for other people to play, is when your textures really aren't lined up nicely like this. Yes, it's definitely lined up with our static mesh, but looking in the corner here, well, they could have done a better job with alignment. And by having the panel go all the way into the corner as opposed to just the start of another panel, it would look better.
That's right. So we'll tick this over until we get right about there, and so you can see that panel ending. You might also want to take a look at the design right here, where these two panels meet, because you might take this sheet and start to truck it over so it looked like those were lining up. Now, you might not be able to find a really super happy medium where you have this panel running all the way into a corner and this part lining up as well. So I would put importance up here because it's going to be fairly unlikely that anybody would notice. See. But if you try, if you can get them both, that's cool.
Yeah,
that
there you go.
Pretty good.
That's not bad at all.
And it looks like it's hanging on out here, looking.
And of course, right now the goal of us is not to go in here and spend a lot of time with texture placement, just to kind of get you up and going with this basic level. But that's looking pretty good. I just wanted to point out why I didn't like the idea of shifting it around.
And well, now I want to shift this one just a little bit too. Since we're here, we're almost done. And click. There we go. So now that lines up, everybody lines up, and everybody's looking good. Okay. Now, you could, of course, do this with all of the different textures across your corners. I just wanted to drive the point home. So at this point, it might be a good idea. You could line your mesh up right there with your line. I mean, if you wanted to be right in the center of a panel, you could do that too. Just, get a feel for your level. I think really it looks good on that center line.
Yeah, that works right.
It's offset from the true center of the wall, but it also balances out from all this busyness we have over here. So let's close out of our Surface Properties.
Now we have a gong to bring in.
That's right. Let's select the gong. I'll right-click here toward the baseboard, and we'll choose Add Actor, Static Mesh, and that's pretty close.
Yeah, nice job.
Now, notice, though, it's not dead on. It needs to be brought up a little bit, and if I drag up...
Yeah, you just can't find that center point.
That's right. So we need to take our drag grid and bring it back down. And I think that looks pretty good.
Very nice.
And as soon as I'm done, I'll go ahead and take that drag grid and set it back to 16. Okay, so let's close the generic browser for a minute. Looking pretty good, but it might be nicer if we balance out the room by putting the gong also on the other side. So I'll do this one in perspective. We'll hold down Control, and I'll make sure the gong blade and the gong are both selected. I'll hold down the Alt key, and we'll move in the X-axis, just truck this right across the wall.
But take a look at that. They've designed this static mesh in such a way that we don't have to rotate it around. Very convenient.
Notice, it's the same thing on both sides.
So we can just simply slide it right into place.
And we'll just pop this over just one more unit, and there we go. So now we have a gong on both sides of the room.
Nice.
Looking pretty good so far. I think the only other thing I'd really like to do in terms of static meshes in this particular room would be to add some light meshes in. Now, this is something that's really important, and it's really common for beginners to forget about this, and that is that when you get to the point where you're lighting your meshes, you always want your lights to look like they're coming from some sort of a source.
That's right. You don't want to just go in there and start throwing in light actors, which, of course, is going to give you illumination, but you don't want to have, you don't want to end up in a situation where you're just having these light sources floating in space where it doesn't look like the light is actually coming from a light-emitting source.
That's right. Every light source in the real world comes from somewhere. If you're outside, it's coming from the sun or the moon or the stars. If you're indoors, it's generally coming from a light bulb or a fireplace or a candle. But there is some sort of realistic source in place.
Something that somebody in that room can point to and say, the light's coming from there.
That's right. So we need to add something similar into our room. I'm going to put 2 little lights here in each corner of the room.
And how about mounting some up higher between the beams as well?
I think we're going to save that for the next room.
Okay, sounds good.
That's what I had in mind anyway. So let's go back into the generic browser. And we have a lights package that we opened, so let's grab that, and we'll scroll up to the top. And we have Light SM Free Light 301. Let's close down our generic browser. I'm just going to right-click here in the corner, add actor, static mesh, and there we go. Now I'm going to pop into the top view to really get this placed here. And that looks pretty good. Maybe we'll bring it in just a little bit in X. I'm going to make a duplicate of it, though, so we'll hold down the Alt key, and I'll drag this down a couple of units like so. So we have 2 of them. I'll hold down Control and make sure I select them both. And let's do that Alt-Shift trick again. So I'm holding Alt and Shift, and we'll move in the X-axis right over to the opposite side like so.
Nice.
Now, let's pop over back into perspective view for just a moment.
And you can see as we continue to add in our static meshes, the room becomes more and more, I don't know, alive, a little more realistic looking.
Yeah. Okay, so you really want to hang some lights from the ceiling?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. We can like split them between 1, 2, 3, between the 2 pillars, and then one to the left of one.
Yeah.
I think that would look pretty good. And there's a good one in there that we can use as well. I think it's like Free Light 01 or something like that.
It's one of these hanging lights. So we have Wall Light 01. There we go. There's Free Light.
Yeah, it looks pretty good.
Okay, and what I'm going to do is let's click right up here in between these pillars, right on the ceiling, and we'll choose Add Actor, Static Mesh like so. And because snapping is set so well, it actually placed it fairly nicely.
Very nice. Hang in from a little cord and everything.
So we might want to pull that back out from the wall just a little bit, though. That'd probably look pretty good.
Okay.
And let's hold down Alt, and I'll drag a copy to fit in between these 2 pillars. And again, because of snapping, they're fitting in really nicely. And we'll even hold down Alt and put one over on the other side as well. So a total of 3 lights. Now, putting them on one side of the room, in this case, I would think means we're going to put them on the other side, too. So let's hold down Alt and Shift one more time, and we'll just drag these right over to the opposite wall. I think it was there. Nope.
Oh, yeah, I was about to say, that's a little too far.
There we go. Okay, now...
see what that looks like. We jump back over into perspective, back over into a lit mode.
That's looking pretty good.
Maybe change our draw scale down, maybe push it up. I don't know. Or not draw scale, but our drag grid down just 1. Well, it might not be too bad.
I think they're fitting okay.
All right.
Yeah, I think they'll work all right. Now, we still haven't lit them, so they probably look a little bit funny because they're not really emitting light. They just look like they're glowing, which will tend to make things look kind of strange.
But yeah, the room is really starting to take shape now. All sorts of stuff going on.
Absolutely. It's really coming to life. Now, in general, this is still a pretty sparse use of static meshes in terms of most UT3 levels that you're going to play.
Sure.
So, I mean, if you want to add a whole lot more, by all means, go for it. I think this is going to do for our design, though, and we can move over to the next room. Now, in between these 2 rooms, I'd like to put some columns into the walls here just to kind of liven this up a little bit. And there's a mesh I've already got in mind for this. If we open the generic browser, jump into the Deco package, we've got, if we scroll down just a little bit, this little prayer wheel. And you can spin these and say ancient prayers and whatnot. Let's go ahead and close this. I'm going to put a stack of these running down the wall. So actually 4 stacks total. But let's right-click here on the floor. We'll choose Add Actor, Static Mesh. And there we go. And I'm going to pop into the top view to get it positioned properly. And we'll just put it right there in the corner of our hallway. Now I'm going to hold down the Alt key and drag to the right to make a copy. They're right next to each other. Let go of Alt, hold it down again, and drag out another copy. Repeat, let go of Alt, hold it back down, drag out a 4th copy. And there we go. Now, let's jump over to the front view where we can see all 4 of these meshes. I'm going to hold down Control and Alt at the same time and drag out a marquee selection box. We'll hold down the Alt key and drag upwards and stack these right on top of one another. Let's hold down Alt again, drag up, and hold down Alt one more time and drag up. So now we have these 4 columns made out of these stacked prayer wheels. All right, next I'm going to go back over to the top view, and let's make another copy of these on the opposite side of the hallway. So I'll hold down the Control and Alt buttons again to make another marquee selection, which is just going to grab all of those stacked up meshes. Hold down Alt one last time and just drag these to the opposite side of the hall, and let's take a look at what we've done.
Very nice.
So there we go. We have these 4 columns stacked on either side of the room. Okay, actually, we're almost finished with static meshing. There's not too much left to do. So let's go back over into the top viewport. What I want to do is get these little brace pieces that I put against the ceiling, and we want to use those on this side of the room as well.
All right, sounds good.
So I'm going to select all 6 of them. We'll hold down the Alt key, and I'm going to drag them all over so that they're spaced as evenly from the left wall as these were from the right wall. So you notice we have this little 32-unit gap. Here we also have a 32-unit gap, and that's exactly what I'm going for. Now, in my particular case, because I've played with this level a couple of times and had to practice it before we actually recorded it, I'm going to add another series of braces here because we're not going to have these big ornate pillars that we've got over here on this side of the room. This is actually going to be something a bit different. So we'll still leave it fairly open, but I will add one more set of these cross beams like so. So again, evenly spaced, 64 units in between each one.
That's right.
Okay, so that takes care of that. It wouldn't also be a bad idea maybe to take these little lights here that are in the corners, and we can make a duplicate of those as well. So I'll select all 4, hold down Alt, and we'll just pull those right through the wall and make a copy on this side as well. We could also bring the gongs over, I think.
Okay.
So we'll still use the gongs. If you wanted a little more variety, please feel free to grab a different mesh. This is just for practice purposes. And I'm not going to worry about exactly where they go. I'm just going to kind of get them over here, and I'll position them where I need them to be exactly here in just a moment. Okay, let's go back into perspective. And with just a little bit of duplicating, this room is already kind of starting to come to life just a little bit. I wouldn't mind some sort of pillars, though, some columns that kind of look like they're helping to hold the roof up.
Sure.
So let's go back over to the generic browser, and we'll take a look in the supports package. And we're going to use let's see if I can find the one I'm looking for. Scroll up a little bit. I believe it's this guy, Supports SM Shinto Pillar 01. So we'll select that. Close out the generic browser, and we'll just place this anywhere on the floor for now. I'll figure out where it's going to go in just a moment. Okay, so boom, there it is, and it looks like it kind of climbs up out of the level just a little bit. We could shrink it down just a tad, maybe down to, say, 0.8. I think that looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Wow, maybe a little short.
So maybe 0.85.
You could, or maybe you just stretch it back up here in the Z direction.
If you want to.
Well,
I like the uniform for me instead of stretching
right.
in one particular.
All right.
Yeah.
Just because it's you.
That looks good.
Okay, so now let's pop.
Hey, I'm just happy you put the lights hanging from the ceiling in the other room.
Yeah. All right, let's go back over to the top view and pop over to brush wire frame mode. Now, we're going to put this first column right over here in the corner. So something kind of like this. I think that's going to work for my snapping. I'll reserve the right to tweak that if I need to. And then let's put another copy over in the opposite corner. So I'll hold down the Alt key, and we'll just drag this over like so. Now, it'd be cool if I could have another couple of these columns. Now, just because, we got these really big columns over here in this big framework. Let's put a little more support on this side of the room, though. So I'm going to hold down Alt, and we'll drag this over, say, to, I don't know, maybe right about here.
Not in front of our gong.
Well, we can move the gongs.
Yeah, we can.
The gong can be... I just dragged them over. Again, I didn't worry about positioning the gongs just yet. What I'm going to do, though, is we'll have 2 sets of pillars here toward the beginning of the room, and it looks like I hit the Windows key instead of the Alt key, and we'll drag these over like so. So now I have 3 total sets of pillars for, a grand total of 6.
Okay.
Now, because the gongs, I'm sure, are scaring you because they're partly behind a column right now, we can go ahead and center them up between these 2 sets of pillars.
I'll definitely feel better.
So, say something...
one to your left.
Just about like that. And that should line up pretty well. But we want to pop into perspective and just verify that. So we'll go back over to a lit mode. And there we go. So, yeah, really starting to come to life as I pull my gongs off the wall accidentally. Okay, I'm liking it so far, but we're not quite done. I'd like to put some statues in here.
Okay.
I really like the statues that are included with these packages. So let's pop it back into our generic browser, and we have Deco Statue. I'm going to start with a plinth, which is just going to be a pedestal to put our statues on, and we'll place this right in the center of the floor. And it's just a little big.
Just a little bit.
So let's pull this down to about 0.7. I think that'll work. Maybe I'll play with 0.6 and see what it looks like. That'll probably work better, just for what I have in mind. Now, let's go back into the top view, and I want to make sure it's not running through the wall, and it isn't. Actually, I got really lucky on that place.